Hello everybody again. Yesterday I said that when I gave a presentation that I'm wearing two hats here. One was my little academic hat for yesterday's talk. The other hat, I guess, is the activist hat. And that's the one that I've got now. So we thought when we were talking about organizing this event that it might be nice to partner a little bit between the organizers and NCUC, the non-commercial users constituency within ICANN, for a number of reasons, one of which a number of the faculty members are actually from NCUC, quite a lot of them actually as it happens. Another is you're here because of an ICANN, or at least a lot of people are here because ICANN is meeting in Durban, and there's the opportunity for people who haven't participated in ICANN before to do so. And for those coming in from the civil society standpoint in particular, we thought we could point to one particular path you could take towards getting engaged for the week or beyond, depending on your preferences, and that is NCUC. So we thought we would talk a bit about the non-commercial users constituency, of which I'm the chair this year, and some of the challenges it's faced in participating in ICANN and representing the interests of civil society and non-commercial users and organizations, and use that as a way also into addressing some of the larger questions we have about multi-stakeholder cooperation, because we all talk about multi-stakeholderism in a kind of abstract, it's a wonderful thing, etc. But the reality is that when you're talking about something like the IGF, you're talking about multi-stakeholderism in contexts where decisions that are binding are not being made. ICANN is a rather different situation. ICANN, as we know, is a fairly unique governance body, and one that actually makes decisions that have teeth. It regulates the global DNS industry and allocates and manages at the top level IP addresses in ways that have binding effects. And here is an example of a governance institution in which, in fact, civil society participants actually have a real voice and can participate in trying to shape decisions. Now, of course, they don't always win. More often than not, we may lose. But nevertheless, by staying engaged in the process, civil society is able, I think, often to help to set the agenda, to soften some bad decisions, and sometimes actually get some good things put into the policy process that then get picked up and end up being part of the global policy environment. So it's actually a very interesting case of where multi-stakeholderism actually can be viewed in terms of whether or not the least powerful players, civil society, really do get the capacity through the institutional rules and structures that are put in place to be able to meaningfully impact decision making. So I think these are all good reasons for us to think about NCUC and the broader questions raised by NCUC's experience. So what we're going to do quickly, I'll just do a little quick background about NCUC, and I know that you've heard a lot about ICANN, so I don't go out and do a lot of detail on ICANN, which is great. Then we'll have a few observations from some of the colleagues here who are members of the GNSO Council from NCUC, particularly Joy, who you've heard a lot from this morning, Wolfgang, and David Cake, who's just joined us. And then we've got some other members of NCUC who happen to be in the room. If any of them want to make a brief comment about anything, Magali, Joao, Tim, Nuno, Glenn, they're all certainly welcome to do so. Any observations they might have. And then, hopefully fairly quickly, we'll move into an interactive discussion to get any questions you have about how civil society works in ICANN, how effective is it, how maddening is it worth doing these things, and so on. So that's sort of the quick agenda we have in mind. I handed around a copy of a new brochure that we just had printed up that covers some of the same points that I'll mention very briefly here, just by way of a very broad overview of NCUC. So that's the game plan. So this is ICANN's main office in LA, but ICANN is in a process now, as we know, of becoming more internationalized. It's got offices in Brussels, in Washington, but it's opening up offices in Singapore and Istanbul, and a whole bunch of engagement centers where it'll be basically points of presence around the world in a number of places, including some interesting ones like Beijing. So ICANN is making an effort under the current leadership to respond to the ongoing criticisms that have been around for quite some time that ICANN has remained too much rooted in the US and the OECD region and needs to much more fully engage the world. So they're trying to do that now as we speak. It is, as I say, a unique global governance mechanism as a public benefit corporation under California law that basically, through contracts, rather than treaties or other traditional kinds of mechanisms for doing global governance, regulates the market for registries and registrars. And again, we know registries are the wholesalers and registrars are the retailers of domain names. And it also performs the IANA functions, the Internet Assigned Name Authority functions, about which McTim talked about, and others managing.
And the ICANN staff who presented ICANN.
And the ICANN staff as well. So the numbers aspect and the names aspect, both being managed here in a kind of very different kind of approach from traditional kinds of global governance institutions. And one of the really definitive things I think to note about the multi-stakeholder process in ICANN is it's very iterative, it's very ongoing, everything takes a long time, it's a slow process of trying to build consensus, and when people finally get to making decisions and somebody challenges those decisions, then you go through another round of challenges. And so people often criticize ICANN for being not as quick to do things as it might be, but that is actually, I think, inherent in the process, trying to bring on board all these extremely fragmented interests. ICANN pulls together a wide variety of players with very distinct interests that, and tries to get them to cooperate and find some common ground. That's a very difficult process, and it does it in a way that I think is very open to public participation, even though there are, of course, informal barriers to participation nevertheless, such as language, time, culture, expertise, and so on. I've had a couple of people here in the course of this week say to me, I asked, are you going to ICANN? And they said, well, but, do I have to pay? So maybe it's not always entirely clear. These meetings are completely open and free. Anybody who wants to go to ICANN starting tomorrow can register and just go. So it is.
Register. You don't need to register.
You don't even need to register.
No, you can just go and do it there.
Well, that's what I mean. You go there and you register. But it's like you just sign your name and you say, yes, I'm here, and then you're in. One other thing I would just point out real quickly, if you've never participated in any ICANN processes, the remote participation in ICANN is really, really good. The use of Adobe Connect and other kinds, and even just phone bridges, everything is transcribed and recorded. It's very possible to get engaged in ICANN processes without ever actually attending a physical meeting. So, ICANN, you've seen this before undoubtedly. It's a complex ecosystem of different pieces. We're focusing here on just this one little one, the GNSO, the Generic Name Supporting Organization, which is the place that coordinates the policy development process for generic top-level domains like .com, .org, .info, so on, of which there are now 22, but will soon be thousands. Within the GNSO, you have different constituencies and stakeholder groups, and we're one of those players. So all this other apparatus that deals with other different bits, I'm not going to talk about now. In the GNSO, you have basically a weird structure, a bicameral accounting fiction house, where basically all the relevant parties were broken into two broad groups. Those who are under contract with ICANN, that's to say the providers of the registries and the registrars, and those who are not under contract, the non-contracted parties. We are defined by being not something. So the contracted parties are the guys who run the DNS industries. The non-contracted parties are really the users. There's the business users, the commercial stakeholder group, and that includes 3 different constituencies on intellectual property, ISPs, and just general business. And then there's a non-commercial stakeholder group. So we're like 1/4 of this GNSO monstrosity. And within that, there's constituencies, and we are one of them, the non-commercial users constituency there. So, and what just happened now? Oh, I clicked on a link that's not going to open. Well, okay. There you go.
It's true that they say,
already
what
got
they
it
say
open.
about Apple
Already open.
products, that they de-skill people.
It's in the tab on the right.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to go back. I didn't mean to. Oh, look at this. So this is just a picture of the GNSO council structure, but for some reason it's sizing so oddly. What am I doing? Control
Just do
minus?
Control minus, I think.
There you go. So you can see there's the name of Wolfgang Kleinvector, sitting just to my left. He's a representative of civil society in the non-contracted house. You see Joy, you see my friend David here, and several others who are not with us right now. All there as voting participants in the non-commercial stakeholder group thing now. How do we get back to my presentation? Here we go. I'm really not used to Windows. I'm very sorry. So, NCUC, then, since 1999, has been the home for civil society organizations and individuals who want to follow or participate in the GNSO process. We have a diverse global membership comprising about 90 organizations and 210 individuals in 70 countries. So it's a fairly substantial group of people. Our members work in fields like civil liberties and human rights, internet freedom, consumer protection, education, research, development, and other areas of public policy advocacy. And generally, we advocate sort of progressive positions on domain name-related issues, reflecting the values and interests of global civil society, preserving non-commercial spaces, and so on. We are meeting multiple times over the next week. And one of the things we're doing is launching our new website, which I'm just showing you a sneak peek of. All volunteer labor. So, of course, a lot of things move along slowly. But nevertheless, this has just been built by a couple of our folks. And you can see here we have well, that's a kind of dated, but it shows you 75 countries, 90 organizations, 210 individuals. So we have people all over the world who are engaged in these processes, and you can see a list of who's there and links to videos of past conferences and events, and we will be putting up on there pretty soon a repository of all of our documents and statements and interventions over the years and so on and so forth. So, anyway, so what do? We mobilize civil society actors to participate in ICANN, including its working groups and other processes. We send people to ICANN's 3 face-to-face meetings around the world, which are free of charge and open to anybody. We elect representatives to the GNSO Council, like Joy and David and Wolfgang, which coordinates the policy development process for GTLDs. They get to actually vote on stuff that happens, actual policies that are adopted. We appoint representatives to the ICANN nominating committee, which appoints members of the board of directors and other parts of the ICANN machinery. We collaborate and interact with other stakeholders on matters of common concern. We find ourselves in variable coalitions with different business groups, depending on the issues of what we're trying to achieve. We organize a lot of conferences and events, exploring different global internet governance issues and so on. And finally, basically, the kinds of issues that we tend to favor are the ones that are mentioned again on the brochure. Human rights, about which Joy spoke quite a lot this morning, diversity and consumer choice, protecting non-commercial users and uses in the internet. I just went to freedom of expression, which is constantly under challenge in ICANN, with governments seeking to control what kind of names can be put into the root zone file. Privacy, with regard to things like the Whois database, which allows people to look up, including human rights activists who are working in difficult environments, etc. We try to protect people's privacy in the core of the internet. Access to knowledge, we spend a lot of time dealing with intellectual property issues and the efforts of the trademark interests and other major intellectual property interests to expand their control into the core of the domain name system. Development, well, a lot of us have interest in developing country issues, multilingual internet and of course, more generally, global internet governance questions. Many of us have been involved from the start in the IGF processes and things like that. So, to conclude, in Durban, we have a number of different meetings. Oh, look at that. Look to exit. I don't want to exit. It's really, it's like magic. It just does whatever it wants to do. Hello, Tuela.
There you go.
Okay, so anyway, go back to view. This is a very funky thing. So, I just wanted to show you two things. Should anybody, I don't know if anybody intends to come to ICANN next week. It'd be a very interesting experience just to come in and wander around. There's just an enormous amount of stuff happening, and plus people have a good time, which is kind of nice. There's a lot of receptions and drinking. Tuesday night is music night. Everybody gets up and sings and dances. You can watch all the drunk government people on stage singing. It's really kind of if you've not, it's something you will never see in an ITU meeting.
I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to see drunk government people.
Well, but they're there.
I want to see them build roads.
Oh, server not fun.
The government do actually work pretty hard.
The government people do
usually at doing the wrong things, but they spend a lot of time and effort doing it.
We all work pretty hard. Actually, people do work really hard. That's why they play hard. Why is this link not working anymore?
Yes, work hard, play hard is pretty much how most of us are.
Well, okay, Constituency Day, Tuesday. We will be having a day-long, 3-hour session the morning of Tuesday. You are all most welcome to attend. We will have a presentation from somebody named Henriette Esterhuizen about, she will be leading a discussion about African perspectives on ICANN and internet governance. We will have a visit from the ATRT, the Accountability and Transparency Review Team, of which Avri Dori is a member, to talk about how to promote accountability and transparency within ICANN more effectively. And we will be raising a number of concerns we have about recent decisions taken by the board of directors and so on. We will have a visit from the vice chair of the GAC, Thomas Schneider from Switzerland, to talk about some of our concerns about the directions that governments seem to be going in some of their policies recently, particularly since Beijing meeting in April. So we'll have quite a robust meeting Tuesday morning. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is Wednesday afternoon, if this would, wow, look at what it's doing. I can't get over this thing. Okay, I can't even begin to get it. How do I get back to where I was?
What are you after?
What am I after? I want my goddamn presentation back. Where am I?
No, you're not going to do that.
Easier to do this by email.
There we go. Yes, thank you. And I was just going to show you also on Wednesday, I've organized a workshop that should be very interesting on the hotly contested issue of closed generic top-level domains, which is going to be decided, I think, on a preliminary basis by the GAC and the board during this meeting. This is the whole debate about whether or not you should have companies able to run registries that are completely closed to everybody else. So somebody like Amazon owns .book, and whether that's a good thing or not. And how, and we're going to have a number of interesting speakers, including somebody named Joy Lidecote, and others debating the relative merits of closed generic domains, .amazon, .patagonia, and so on. So we have a lot going on this week, and we certainly would welcome any participation and engagement from...
Sure, that's what you want.
I'm just trying to get the fuck out of here.
That was all.
Language.
So anyway, so I'm done with that. Now I'm looking at Emilar's email, which I really don't want to look at. How about I just do that?
Well done.
Okay, so that's the background to NCUC is a avenue into playing in ICANN this week, should you be interested. Now,
We should fear the NSA when they have all drink.
exactly. I'm surveilling all of your email, and I've sent out a few press releases in your name, and it's all good. I'll get out of the way. So now, why don't we just hear a few words from some of our